Hi, Judy. It's Molly. And here's a story that I wrote actually for Tara's graduation. And I'm finally trying to get it down to send to you. So, this is a story about a mother and her two daughters. They lived in a very remote village and they were waiting for her husband and her son to come back. They had gone on a long journey to go fishing. Well, the daughters and the mother were close, and they would often tease each other about some of the habits that they had. The one daughter was very good at tapestries. She could sew and make beautiful art out of string and thread. The other daughter was very good at dancing. She had a fan and she would entertain everyone by dancing around with beautiful moves. Now, their mother would tell them stories that had been handed down by her own family, for they had lived in the village for many years. One day, a messenger from the king came through. He gave the information that the king was getting ready to build a new castle, and if you would contribute by beautiful rocks and shiny gems and seashells, you could be paid handsomely for this. So, of course, the mother and the two daughters thought, this would be a good thing for us to try and make some money. The mother said, oh, I know a place. It's up on Storm Mountain. I've been told that if we go on such a journey, we would be able to find beautiful rocks and we could sell them to the king. So early in the morning, the three trudged up the mountain. It was a very narrow trail. The girls had never been up to Storm Mountain, nor had the mother. As they got up to the very top of the mountain, the girls were exhausted. But they were amazed because their mother seemed to just become giddy, like a child. She was running, squealing with delight when she would find these beautiful rocks, and they filled their bag. And as they had started up the mountain, the clouds had swirled around. The clouds were almost hypnotic. It was mesmerizing to see these clouds, white and fluffy, drifting by. But that afternoon, as they worked, they noticed the sky grew dark and the wind began to pick up. There was a feeling of something about to happen in the air. And the girls said, we should leave. Let's go. We have plenty of these rocks. Let's go. But the mother said, no, let's grab a few more. Just then, the wind began to pick up, and it blew so hard, and the clouds now began to be darker, almost sinister. The clouds that had been so white now were black, and they began to take shape. Bolts of lightning now began to strike, and the pounding of thunder. The girls and their mother, they ran to take shelter behind some of the rocks. And the girls were terrified when they saw their mother stumble and fall, and then this image from the clouds, a great dragon with this mouth reaching down and enveloped the mother. And then in just a moment, she and the sky dragon cloud were gone. The wind was now calm and the sky bright again. And the girls shouted for their mother, but she had indeed disappeared. Well, they were terrified, of course, and so they ran down the trail and told the people of the village what had happened. But the people of the village were skeptical. They said, oh, your mother is a foolish woman. She has probably ventured too close to the edge of that mountain and fell to her death. You'll find a pile of bones someday. But the girls knew They knew what they had seen, and they would not be shaken. That night they went to bed heartbroken, but determined that they would go and find their mother. In the morning they woke up and discussed what could be done. Just then, the one daughter remembered a tapestry that had been given to her. It was old, many years, but she spread it out, and there was the story of the village and images of her own ancestors. And on one corner, she saw the image of the sky dragon, what they had seen the day before. And along was a ring of figures as if those had been lost, as their mother had been taken. So grabbing hold of this tapestry, they ran to the oldest woman. She lived on the edge of the village and was ignored by most, for she was considered strange. She had lots of cats and no family. But the girls thought perhaps she could have an answer for us. So as they approached her, the old woman greeted them. Her house was covered in vines, for it had been there for many years. Flowers and hummingbirds darted in and out, and the old woman was quite happy to have visitors. She offered them tea, and they told her the story. The old woman gave them a look of recognition, and she acknowledged that she too had witnessed such an event. When she was a girl, she had gone to the mountain with a friend, and the sky dragon had taken away her friend. When she told the village, they did not believe her, and some, in fact, thought perhaps she had had something to do with her friend's disappearance. She had lived her life with sadness. "What can be done?" asked the girls. "Do you know of the sky dragon?" "Little," she said, "but my own mother used to say that across the valley there is another mountain, and perhaps that might be the place the sky dragon makes his home." With this little knowledge, the girls set out on the journey. When they got to the base of the mountain, it was dark and forbidding. There was no trail, no way that they could access the mountain. Straight, smooth cliffs of rock went around the entire base of this mountain. But as the girls gazed upward, they could see birds flying around the top of the mountain. These were not birds that they would see scratching on the dirt for insects or seed. These birds were huge. They were so big, their wings stretched out longer than a canoe. Perhaps, they thought, if we could get one of these birds to swoop down and take us to the top of the mountain, there we might find our mother. So the one girl who was skilled at weaving took the finest thread and began to weave a net. The thread that she chose to use was so fine that it almost appeared to be invisible. And they strung it between two rocks. And the other daughter began to dance with her fan. It was bright red, and she danced and whirled and twirled as if bring to their location the attention of these birds. Well, the first bird swooped down. He was so large he could have easily grabbed the girl, but she dove and tried to get him entangled in the net. But the bird swooped away. So again, she danced, whirling and twirling. She danced, and again her movements attracted another bird. The large bird came diving. She could see his talons reached out to seize her, but she jumped behind a rock and escape, and so did the bird. But on the third try, for of course, third time is charm. As the girl danced, she saw a large bird, bigger than the other two, come toward her. She waited till just the last second that she would be captured, and then dove. The bird was tangled in the net and struggled to break free. And in this moment, the girls grabbed a hold of this net. The net was tangled around the talons of this large bird, but his wings were free, and I lifted up from on top of the ground, and the girls felt themselves flying, the wind in their face, swinging and swaying, holding tight to that net. As they went up to the very top of the mountain, they felt the bird land in its nest. This nest was larger than their own shelter, made of sticks. And now the bird released the net, and the girls climbed up. As they climbed, they could smell something. A horrible smell. It was the smell of death. This is my cat Maggie. I believe we've been caught by a vulture. Ah, said the other sister. At least we are not dead, but very much alive, and we will leave this place now. So, luckily, they escaped the vulture's nest, but were thankful they had been given a ride to the top of this mountain, the mountain of the sky dragon. They found a small path and began to walk along it. And as they walked, in and out of the clouds, little bits of light could be seen. And they began to notice that along this small mountain trail were the images of faces captured in stone, people who had been taken and never released. And now they guarded this trail. They could see the image of eyes, nose, mouth. They did not know these people, but they knew what had been their fate. When they came to the end of the rock-faced trail, they saw glowing down below a cavern, and down below they could see the sky dragon curled up as if he was taking a nap. Beside the sky dragon were little tiny balls that looked like a storm cloud, but so small you could have held them in your hand. But they too glowed, for as if little bolts of lightning had been formed into this small bowl, ready to burst into life, to be born. And there they too saw their mother, who tended to the sky dragon and these little unborn bolts of lightning. What can be done, they thought. Oh, I do not know. The girls felt helpless. But again, they were resourceful and came up with a plan. I will make a rope, said the one. Ah, you must climb to the top and somehow attract the attention of the sky dragon while I lower the rope down so Mother can climb up. Now, they were at almost the very top of the mountain, and all that was for the one girl was little bits of lichen that stuck out as if they were shelves or steps. So she began to climb up a ladder of lichen till at last she stood upon the top and called down to the sky dragon. With her fan, she began to move it gracefully back and forth. The fan now brought in more and more wind, and this breeze blew down and alerted the sky dragon of a possible intruder. The sky dragon burst up through the hole and began circling the mountain. Just at that moment, the rope was dangled down, and they tried to get their mother's attention, but she was distracted by her duties. So the two girls slid down the rope, and their mother rejoiced to see them. What can we do? We must be out before the sky dragon comes back. Oh, I have an idea, said the mother. Take this rope, tie it around so that all of these little dragon eggs will be tied together in one form. Tie them tightly so they cannot be released, or we will have more sky dragons than we know what to do with. But then how would we escape? Asked the daughters. Ah, have faith, said the mother. So the girls did as they were told. In and out they began to weave. And so at last there was a clutch, a collection of all of these little eggs, dark clouds pulsating with little bolts of lightning. And the girls and their mother took these, and on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, began to push them up. And the other daughter took her fan and waved it back and forth, and these little clouds were released out of the sky to float about. But the girls were still trapped. Don't worry, said the mother. I know how to escape. She gave a whistle, and suddenly there was a light so bright the girls were blinded. It was a sun dog, of course. Her mother had been secretly making friends with the sun dog. Oh, the sun dog leapt, and the girls held on. Out of the top they flew just as the sky dragon was coming back. But the sun dog was quicker than the sky dragon. The light blinded the sky dragon, and the girls escaped. They could see the dark cloud that had been sewn together so tightly, this dark cloud that little bits of lightning would illuminate but could not escape. And to this day, on certain times, you might see this dark thunderhead with tiny little sky dragons trapped inside, waiting for the right moment to burst out. Well, that's not the end of the story, of course. They went back to the Sky Mountain's original site, Storm Mountain, and the rocks, the shiny, beautiful gems and jewels were still there. They took them back and, of course, received a fair price for them. We might say that they lived happily ever after, but their lives were never without a challenge. But they were always, always resourceful and learned to respect each one, wisdom and strength. Well, that's my story for you, my friend. I wrote that in honor of our own journey as a mother and a daughter, and our own daughters and our own mothers. I love you and draw strength from you every day. Goodbye.